Well, hey, welcome to In the Growth Space. I'm David McGlennon. I'm your host. Man, I'm really glad that you're here with me today. I have an episode that is just a great conversation. I'll tell you more about that here in just a moment. But if you would, just at the start here, would you go onto your podcast app and would you rate and review this podcast? We want to be able to reach more leaders, to be able to share stories of growth and journeys of growth so that others can be encouraged to get in their own growth space. And if you don't mind, if this particular episode or any of our episodes has really meant something to you, would you share it with somebody? Share the episode, share the podcast, and let them know about it. I'd really be very great for doing that. So just as a quick preview for some of the things that we've got coming up, I've got a solo episode coming up that I share a very personal story and a story of growth and something that it's based on a blog post that I wrote but never posted and never published. And so you're going to hear it here first. Some of you may have heard parts of the story before, but I'm excited to be able to share it with you. Then we also have a really great friend and mentor, John Berghoff, who is the founder of Exchange. Exchange is a community of facilitators and coaches and change agents who are using a really new approach to convening people. And I'm really excited that he's said yes to be on. If any of you know Hal Elrod, the Miracle Morning, he's a great friend of Hal's. He's a former executive of the Vitamix Corporation, and he is just a master facilitator. I have learned so much from John, and I'm really looking forward to sharing our conversation with you. The other thing, too, that we've got coming up is a Q&A episode. We've already had some questions come in on our recorded line. So if you would like to be on the podcast, call our recorded line. There is a number in the show notes. I believe it's 412-475-9288. But if you're not at a place where you can write that down, it'll be in the show notes. We'd love for you to be able to call in and share with me your question. I want to answer as many questions as I can about leadership, about growth. Maybe even if you want to ask me, ask me anything. I'll answer most everything, I think. Depends on what it is, but no, I'd love to get your questions, and I really would love to be able to interact with you as well. So call in, or you can write in, send me an email, david@davidmcglennon.com, and we'll get that question queued up. So today is an episode where I have a conversation with a good friend, a newer friend, but someone that I really, really respect, someone who is very well-read. Matter of fact, when we first met a few years ago, I was really amazed at the books that he's read, that I've also read. We've been able to compare notes, share stories, share thoughts, share learnings. He's smart, he's wise. And basically you get to sit in on kind of a situation or a conversation about, what do coaches talk about? And so he and I had a chance to be able to sit down and chat. I wanted to have you get to know someone like him, maybe at a little different level. And so I asked him some questions just about a number of different topics. So we cover the wide range of topics in this conversation. But let me just tell you a little bit about him. His name is Karl Pister, and Karl is a highly experienced executive coach. He is a leader. He serves as the president of the coaching group, and he does a lot with healthcare executives and healthcare administrators and coaches, those folks, and also does conflict management, mediation, leadership transition, employee relations. And in addition to thousands of hours of executive coaching experience, he has decades of hands-on business experience, and that provides him a background of actual business world experience and expertise that he can bring to his clients and help them navigate difficult situations and perhaps challenging situations that they've never seen before. And for more than 10 years within the field of healthcare, he's assisted talented leaders and executives to reach their potential by cultivating a refined thinking process that provides superb results. And as he says, coaching is not about changing behavior, it's about changing the thinking that allows behavior to change. I love that. So, hey, enjoy this conversation with me and my good friend, Karl Pister. Well, hey, Karl, welcome to In the Growth Space. Man, it's so great to have you here. I can't wait to dive into this conversation today.
Oh, same from my end. Thanks for having me, David.
It's my pleasure. My pleasure. Well, my podcast here is really all about growth, and I always love to hear other leaders' growth journey. And I know you've been yourself in senior leadership. You've been a coach now for a number of years, and I'd love to just ask you what's been your growth journey like, and how did you get into coaching maybe, and let's start there.
Okay. Keeping it short here, came out of grad school from Brigham Young University with a degree in clinical social work and a master's in that and another master's in marriage and family therapy, but took a non-traditional route out of grad school. Instead of going into direct treatment, I took a job with what are called employee assistance programs.
Yep.
And it was a startup out of Salt Lake City. We got bought a couple of years later by Aetna Life and Casualty to help develop their managed mental health care. I still got my clinical license by doing a lot of after hours counseling, but that first 10 years of my career was in corporate America. And I never took a business class in college, and I fell in love with business. It just, the psychology of those executives in the front line, high achieving people just were great to be around. And so I did that from 86 to 95. And then there were some business shifts. So my wife and I decided we would, instead of taking a transfer, we were up in Portland, Oregon at the time, and had a chance to transfer to either Dallas, Texas, or Los Angeles. And we thought, yeah, well, for quality of life, maybe we'll stay in Oregon. So we went out on our own. I did a lot of clinical counseling over the years. But then I think this is the most interesting part. I think it's a lesson for many that you just never know where the bridges are.
Yeah, sure.
I did a training for Nike and hit it off well with one of the HR managers. Did a couple of engagements with her, and then that was 1997, and nothing more than that. And that happens a lot with big corporations.
Sure.
Well, 2007, I get this email from Pam, and Pam asked, Karl, do you still do coaching and consulting? So yes, I do. And she was at that time with a large healthcare organization, and she asked me to work with two of her clinic managers and getting them to work better together. And from that one phone call, David, last year when we counted, we were in 8 different states with over 40 different organizations in our portfolio.
Wow.
And really until recently, I've done no marketing. And it's just the power of word of mouth and the importance of good relationships. And, we all have the background where the phrase adding value.
Yes.
And it just, you do that consistently over time. And we've been phenomenally blessed in so many ways. And we work with great people. I have a good friend that says, Karl, you have a great job. You work with hyper smart people all day long, talking to them about common sense stuff, and they pay you. So.
That's great.
And yep, that's pretty well it.
I love it. I love it. Well, it seems like it's common sense stuff. However, I know that many leaders can, get in their own way, and it really is an opportunity for them to, step back and think about their own leadership, think about just the issues at hand. And, I'm kind of curious, where do you see some of those leaders maybe getting in their own way, or just, not being able to perform to the ability that they have within them?
Great question. So a couple of thoughts on that. One is, at least in my field, which is primarily healthcare, working with senior executives that are many times physicians, they have always been the smartest one in the room.
Yeah, sure.
And because they're hyper smart, they have, 1600, 2400 on the SAT. They go into college, they have 4 point or higher. Um, the the primo colleges cherry pick them. They take their MCATs, the medical college admission test, and they blow the score off. And they get the prime fellowships and the internships. And because they're so good at what they do, people kind of give them the get out of jail free card of, yeah, Dr. Jones, he's rough around the edges, but he's an amazing surgeon, and those of us, raising my hand here, that weren't the smartest in the room, we had to learn how to get along and play in the sandbox.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And so many of these, I just started with a surgeon the other day, and he's going to be a superb client because he's open to learning, but he's never really paid attention to what emotional intelligence is.
Oh, yeah.
Because when you're taking apart someone's brain, you don't need to have emotional intelligence overall. Right. You need, if I'm being wheeled into the OR, I want somebody who is the best of the best dealing with my brain cells up there.
Yeah.
However, in order to be really the best he or she can be in the OR, they've got to be able now, especially in today's environments, to build those emotional intelligence bridges. So having that side of the intelligence as robust as the intellectual side. And then what gets in their way is the lack of good leadership training. Okay. It's assumed because they're summa cum laude from Ivy League school or Stanford or UCLA. Because they're smart, they'll be a good leader. And you know as well as I do that that's a Grand Canyon-sized gap. Right. Not the case. Yeah. I heard one person say in a neurosurgery department I was working with, "Oh, Dr. John Doe, he'll make a great leader. He's such a great surgeon." It's just, oh my goodness. No.
It's a big leap, isn't it?
Exactly. But where did you get that equation? And nothing against neurosurgeons, but it has never been part of their training. Yeah. And they might be sent to the intranet of their organization to take a couple of modules on leadership. But you will know as well as I do, that doesn't produce a leader.
Right.
It's that grist mill of being in front of people and getting the feedback and working with a good coach, and really refining. As one person I interviewed yesterday that's considering getting coaching, he says, "I'm at a stage in my career when I need to focus on the nuances and refine them." And that's so true. I mean, it's not that we have to introduce a lot of things. It's just that we have to make the common sense more common for them.
Yeah. Well, and I think that not only is it true, I'm sure, with the medical people who need to become leaders, but I think it's true in, any business school. I think that we learn things that are technical. We can put together a mean spreadsheet, but it's the people aspect of leadership. I think that it's so hard because every person is different. And yes, there's some common themes and there's some human psychology that we can use to be able to help us in that journey. But you're right. It's the everyday being able to get that feedback, take an action, get some feedback, learn from it, make mistakes, and then be able to move on. I think that process is so key to leadership.
And you hit such an important point there, David. no other skill that we go after do we assume is just natural.
You're right, right.
I mean, you talk about your son in one of our meetings, and the incredible jazz musician he is. That only comes through incredible level of persistent, focused, small step practicing. You
Yeah,
look at athletes, they only dominate the basics by hours in the gym. Friend was telling me yesterday about Kobe Bryant, who blew a key game early in his career. And he said to himself, I need to double my practice time.
yeah,
So instead
yeah,
of X a day, he did X times two.
yeah.
And just the mental edge that gave him when he stepped on the court, knowing that he was, just by practice time, twice as good as probably any other player on the floor.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, it is truly going after it with a dedicated, intentional, skill-based approach that I'm going to get better at this. And
Right.
not just, you know, I love to read, but it's the practice of what you read, not just the reading. It's the
Yeah,
practice, practice, practice.
that's so true. It's interesting. I was talking with an emerging leader just this morning, and one of the things we talked about was the fact that human behavior doesn't change, instantaneously. We'd like it to. We'd like to be able to just say, okay, I'm going to read this book, I'm going to flip a switch, and all of a sudden, I'm emotionally intelligent. But that doesn't happen. And it's one of those things where you have to just continue to do things over and over and over again. And that repetition is what really helps us to cement things into our learning and understanding. And I think that's the practical side of leadership.
And I think as leaders help their people or leaders help themselves, what you described there, it's not just a psychological approach. We literally are creating new habits which are based on neuron development in our brain.
Yeah.
It's not Karl just deciding, oh, that habit that I've had for decades, I'm not going to do that anymore. It's just that's not biologically possible,
Hmm.
because when stimulus comes up, my 65-year-old brain says, oh, seen that, this is our path, in an instant micro nanosecond. And then we get frustrated. Well, gee, I went to that coaching session yesterday and it must not be helping. And it's no, but these little nerve endings, every time David or Karl does something, gets wrapped with an enzyme that helps the brain remember better next time.
Yeah.
And until those new nerve endings are consistently wrapped, we can pretty well predict that Karl's old behavior is going to be Karl's current behavior, unless I'm focusing on the biology, which happens because I do something again and again.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you take let's say it's a senior leader, it could be a physician in your world. How do you help them to begin to create that repetition, or to be able to change that neurobiology in their brain? How do you help them? What part of the coaching process helps with that?
This I think I learned most with a mutual connection of ours, Paul Martinelli, when I went to his sales boot camp. And it's just helping them see either a pain point
Mm-hmm.
or a productivity point. And
Yeah.
sometimes they have to see the pain point. Like sometimes I'll get a client that is about ready to lose privileges because of certain behaviors.
Yeah.
And, I had one doctor who lost privileges for 2 weeks and due to that lost income of around 50,000. So do the math.
Oh,
Hyper successful surgeon.
yeah.
So that was a motivator.
Sure.
However, I find that the deeper motivator is, doctor, you are this good, or chief operating officer, you are this good. And you've been this good without all these skills.
Mm-hmm.
And the feedback people are giving you are, he's wonderful, but, or she's superb, but. Can we take those buts, leverage them with your strengths to become someone that is just going to be a turbocharged version of your current self.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where I think I get the best traction.
Yeah.
Not because a lot of the people I work with are senior executives and have been eminently successful. And they come into the coaching sometimes. They're encouraged to get a coach because somebody sees some brick walls they're going to run into, and they're not really too enthused to see me. But if I just can help them, and this sounds perhaps a bit trite, see how much better they could be with some just basic changes.
Yeah.
So it's either if if we don't, this will happen, but better if we do, this could happen. And keep that,
Yeah.
as again, our good friend Paul Martinelli says, hold the image. What
Mm-hmm.
do you want to be? And sometimes no one has ever sat down with them and said, do you know your potential? It's just not with spreadsheets.
Yeah.
I was
Right.
watching you the other day when you gave this presentation, and people listen to you. You have an
Mm.
executive presence. And yes, some of these people have pretty big egos, but underneath that ego is I've rarely run into somebody, David, that underneath just is a super good person. They're great
Mm-hmm.
people. I had
Yeah.
one neurosurgeon that was coming in with some pretty deep scars on his HR folder. And after our first meeting, as I stood up, he just took me by the arm, not in a aggressive way, but he said, Karl, you got to believe I'm not a bad person. And this was, according to his chief of surgery, probably in the top 5% of surgeons in his subspecialty.
Wow.
I mean, he could go, people came to him from all over the nation,
Hmm.
and he never had learned. He was a neurosurgeon. What else did he need to know? And he said, Karl, I want to end my career on a stellar note. And so
Mm.
we with he and I working together, we put together what we still title, I still use it, the Stellar Note Project, where we went
Interesting.
through Marshall Goldsmith's material from What Got You Here Won't Get You There,
Yeah.
and put it into a couple of pages. And
Mm.
I'll always remember that I'm not a bad person and I want to end on a stellar note. And
Mm.
people asked, how did you do this with this physician? And it was, I just teed him up,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
teed him up. And again, it might sound a bit trite, and just let him know that I believed in him.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I think sometimes that's all that people need. They need to have somebody believe in them and believe that they can be better than they are now and really that there's more in them than they are expressing at this point. And that potential just needs to be unlocked.
I had another surgeon in his 70s. He had done some of his initial work in Vietnam in a field combat hospital. So
Mm.
that gives a bit of his age.
Yeah.
And he was in a pretty bad situation. He yelled and thrown a little too much in the OR. And after a couple of sessions, as we stood up with tears in his eyes, and that's not too common for this gentleman, he
Yeah.
said, Karl, why didn't anyone ever explain this before?
Hmm.
Because all they would say is, Doctor, you got to improve.
Yeah.
And thinking that he's an excellent surgeon, he's smart, he'll know. And
Yeah.
yet, like we just mentioned earlier, David, the gap between emotional and intellectual intelligence is huge. They
Yeah.
do not
Wow.
go together.
Mm. That's interesting. Well, and I think the one thing that I think that I like about this conversation is the power of the coaching process, the power of being able to help someone see what they don't see now so that they can unlock more of their ability, more of their greatness, more of their potential that's within them so that they can, end on a stellar note. Because I think too often people go through life and either because of their position or just maybe being afraid of them, they don't get told the truth. And so I can imagine not only just physicians, but senior leaders too. If you're a CEO of a company and, there's not too many people that are going to tell you the truth. They're not going to they're going to tell you what you want to hear. And so it's really important for you to be in an environment where you can be exposed to, the truth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm sure you've had situations where there was a stipulated length of coaching and people continue with you just because of what you said. I remember this one surgeon that had lost 50,000 because of a 2-week suspension. After his mandated coaching was over, he was paying a good sum of money for the coaching. I said, doctor, you're paying me a lot of money and you don't have to be here anymore. He said, Karl, there's no other place where I can be this open.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yes.
and just because of what you said, he was feared.
Yeah.
And he had to do some work to change that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think you started talking about emotional intelligence. Talk a little bit about what emotional intelligence really is, because I think there's a lot of leaders who think they know what emotional intelligence is, but I think it'd be good to just talk about that, because it may be different than what a lot of people think.
Yeah, that's true. It's a buzzword or a buzz phrase. I use a platform. It's out of Australia. It's from Genos International. And I did a lot of research to find a well-established research based, and they have 6 pillars. And it's self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
It's knowing what I bring to the table. It's awareness of others, being able to read a room. It's authenticity. It's building trust by doing what you say you'll do.
Mm-hmm.
It's emotional reasoning, knowing that, again, as our friend Mr. Martinelli says, people make decisions emotionally and then justify them rationally.
Rationally,
And
yeah.
helping them see that. It's crisis leadership, how the person acts when things are flying pretty fast, and positive leadership, which is how much do you build up those people around you? Those are the 6
Mm-hmm.
pillars of the program that I use. And
Mm-hmm.
I like a framework, because a lot
Yeah.
of times I think people can go off on flavor of the month,
Yeah.
that they're really enthused about this and then another good book. And, I am one of the sole drivers for high Amazon stock because of the number of books I buy.
I'm
But
right there with you.
yeah, I see your bookshelf behind you. And
Yeah.
um, it's just an aspect of knowing, and I you cannot have the other pillars without, just start with self-awareness. Just
Mm-hmm.
start with awareness of others.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and don't blow by someone whose countenance has fallen thinking, oh yeah, she'll catch up with it or he'll catch up. No, just slowing down as a leader and saying, wow, Karl, you don't seem yourself today. What's going on? And just those first 2 are huge. The other 4 are important. But unless I know what's going on in myself, it's going to trickle out and affect everyone around me.
Mm-hmm. Man, isn't that the truth? I was just talking with someone about that today, how our presence, when we walk into a room, our internal world
Mm.
gets broadcast out. And so people pick up that, some people would call it a vibe, hey, I just don't, vibe well with that person, or I'm sensing something that's not right, Karl. Let's, what's going on? When you sense that, you've got to tune into that, and sometimes it takes a little bit of time to. And I think you said something that I think is real key, especially for a lot of leaders, and it's slowing down to pick up those things, because I know for myself, I'm a full throttle, afterburner kind of a person. I like to move fast, and I guess in my wiser years, let's put it that way, I'm learning that slower is better, and being able to take a breath and tune in is so important. And I think that I don't want the leaders listening to miss that. Slowing down is really, really beneficial. I think that's so important.
Yeah, Steve Covey talked about that. And I mean, it's just such an important sub theme. Um, and paraphrasing, he said it much more eloquently than I. But why don't we take time the first time to do it right instead of having to repeat it, which we'll always have to do when we do it wrong.
Right.
So no, and I hear leaders saying, yeah, I'd like to address that, but we've really got to finish this today. And when you really look at it, it's just their agenda that needs to be done today.
Mm-hmm.
But they put an artificial time frame on it. And so they blow by. Now, I'm not saying that we have analysis paralysis. I'm not saying that we have to get to consensus so that everyone is happy. No, but just MIT called it the process of slowification, of just ramping it back and making sure that you're noticing. I'm being redundant on what you just said. Slow it down. We'll
Yeah.
just stick with your words.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I think that's so true. What do you think? Like, what do you think? There's so much talk about the generational differences in the workplace today, and I'm curious your take on the things that maybe the younger generation, let's call it the Gen Zs of the world, what do they need to know, or what's something that as a leader they need to tune into, maybe even in contrast to that baby boomer who's towards the end of their career.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, do you get into any of that with your coaching and the leaders that you work with?
Absolutely, because we're dealing for the first time with 5 generations in the workforce.
Yeah,
And
it's
an
amazing, isn't it?
absolutely marvelous book on this is by Tim Elmore, and it's titled A New Kind of Diversity.
Yeah, I love that.
Amazing
It's a great
book.
book. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think one of the big things that um, Gen Z will benefit from, what can we, and I, just want to preface this, we can learn a ton from Gen Z. They're
Yes.
extremely socially conscious. And a lot of this, and Elmore blows up some theories in his books of under the surface of all these differences, there are some powerful commonalities. They want to be recognized. They want to have a purpose. They want to know that their work is valued. They want great feedback. And yes, there's some other things that cause some bumps for them, but let's look at the commonalities first. I think
Mm-hmm.
some things that can really help them take advantage of their great strengths is knowing that they're not fragile.
Yeah.
And we're kind of, we have to have these accommodations, and sometimes it's actually, can we encourage them to go through tough times instead of avoiding the tough times?
Mm-hmm.
Someone said, and it may have been Elmore, I'm not sure, but don't prepare your don't prepare the path for your child, prepare the child for the path. And I think that
That's good.
we really do people a favor when we can say, to your point, I believe in you. And
Yeah.
yeah, as we look out the window, that's a pretty steep mountain you're going to climb. And
Yeah.
it's
Right.
not going to be easy, but oh my goodness, the feeling of victory you'll get when you get there. And by the way, I'm hiking right by you. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
sending you out there. I'm walking with you, and I'll get you
Yeah.
the resources, and I'll be there, and you can do it. So
Mm-hmm.
it helped them to know that a great colleague of mine in my clinical days had 2 phrases: feelings are not facts, number one, and number two, don't believe everything you feel.
Yeah.
And right now we hear a lot of, well, my experience. Okay, that was your experience, maybe over various times, but is it factual? Well, it was
Mm-hmm.
my experience. I hear that. Is it factual? And
Mm-hmm.
it may have been an unfortunate event. that truly was factual but won't repeat. Or number two, it was an experience, but it's how you looked at it, Karl, not how the experience actually was. And so being able to know I'm not fragile, and when I'm having a bad day and I'm just really upset, so it must be external, to help them be objects, not objects, but agents. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
instead of being acted upon, what can they do to change the circumstances instead of waiting for the or hoping the circumstances will change, which instantly puts them in victim mode, which is this downward spiral. And
Yeah.
I love acknowledging reality. And sometimes, whether it's Generation Z, whether it's millennials, Gen X, baby boomers, we all have rotten bad days. And I'm not minimizing that at all. And I just go to Viktor Frankl's work, Man's Search for Meaning, the
Yeah.
last of the human freedoms to choose one's response in any given situation. And
Yep.
that was written from someone who refined his theory in the Nazi death camps.
Yeah.
If he can say that in that setting,
Mm-hmm.
that is to me the ultimate bar. I don't know of
Mm-hmm.
anyone who can legitimately say, yeah, but you know what I'm going through? No. Um,
Yeah.
not to be harsh, but that is, in my view, the ultimate horrible situation.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just love that phrase. Covey put it, between stimulus and response, there is a space. What we choose to do with that space determines our success as individuals. So,
Yeah, I love that. Well, and I think too, there's a book that I read recently, and the name is just escaping me. The Coaching Habit. And one of the questions, he has 7 essential questions in there. One of the questions speaks to the point that you just talked about. And the question is, what's the challenge here for you? And so when somebody's talking about a challenge, when somebody's talking about a situation, they often will like not see their own agency.
mhm.
And when we as leaders can ask good questions about what's the challenge here for you, and put that responsibility back on the individual to help them to see their own growth and where they could grow. I think that's really important because it kind of goes to that extreme ownership. If I'm not taking ownership in my own growth journey, I'm not going to grow. And I think that I'll be always a victim. And I don't want anybody that I lead to be a victim. I want them to be able to be empowered. And I think that's so true too for any of the emerging leaders who might be listening. You need to be empowered. And when you can see what it is that you can do about it, there's so much more power in that for you. And so I loved that particular book, especially if you're a leader and you don't want to necessarily be a coach, but you want to be a coaching leader. That is a great book to just get the essentials of coaching as a leader.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I love that. So, Karl, what advice would you have for a leader who wants to become more emotionally intelligent? What would you say to that leader?
I would, again, I like to set a good base. So, first, I'd like that person to get 2 books by Dan Goleman. One is Working with Emotional Intelligence, and the other one is Primal Leadership, which
Yeah.
primal meaning our responses come from some deep places. So
Mm-hmm.
just get a view of what it really means to be self-aware. What does it mean to be aware of others? What are the different leadership styles?
Mm.
And then to carefully choose an inner circle of people who
Yeah.
can be your personal mastermind. Napoleon Hill
Yes.
talks about that in his book, The Law of Success,
Mm.
taken from some incredible interviews of the titans of industry back in the early 1900s.
Yeah.
And just I guess I'd add to that, David, be intentional about it. Be asking a
Yeah.
ton of questions. Both of us are coaches, so I don't want this to sound disingenuous, but get a good coach. And sometimes that can be pricey. However, it's investment in yourself that will never, ever be regretted.
Yeah.
I started investing in myself about 11 years ago, and it's no coincidence that along with the bank account outlay that went like this, the resultant income has far outstripped the
Mm-hmm.
investment in that I've made money wise in that. And the money wise can be measured. The growth intellectually and emotionally, that is immeasurable because of people
Right.
I've come in contact with. I've come in contact with you, with Paul Martinelli, with Andy Hall, uh, just amazing thinkers, John Maxwell, that
Mm-hmm.
um, the person I was 11 years ago was successful in some areas. What I'm at now, just by the good mentoring of great minds, I can't even compare it. Still a long way
Mm.
to go, but it's a big difference than it was 10, 11 years ago.
Wow. And I think about the impact that you have, the impact that anyone has when they invest in themselves, whether that's through a mastermind, whether it's through listening to podcasts like this or reading a book or investing in a coach. When you do that, there's there's a return, but it's not always just financial. It's also an impact on the people that we come in contact with. And man, that's what I love about investing in ourselves and investing in ourselves as leaders. And I would say this to the audience today is when you invest in yourself, there are things that you won't be able to measure, and that's, I think that's the hard thing about it, but there's also a beautiful thing about it as well, because you may never know in this lifetime the impact that you have on somebody else, but you can just say one thing. You can offer your belief in them, and that belief then helps to unlock a step that they need to take, and they take that step because of your belief, and man, that can change the entire world. And so I'm such a big proponent of investing in ourselves
Yeah.
through a number of different ways, and I just think that you just touched on a really hot topic, Karl.
Yeah, and you can start anywhere, but to really make a difference, it's going to be an investment that you're not used to making. Um,
True. True.
Going and taking an internet class is good,
Yeah.
and it's not enough.
Right.
It's got to be where you're interacting with other people. I don't think you can really go on the growth path alone. That's
No, I agree.
isolated. Um,
Yeah.
all these books that surround me in my office here, they're only as beneficial as I use them with others.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I'm just gaining knowledge, and there's nothing wrong with that. And it doesn't make a difference. I can
Yeah.
enlarge myself, but over the long haul, if I'm not reaching out and interacting, it just goes, it's not useful.
Yeah, I so agree. And I think that in today's world, there's so much need for community. I just read the Surgeon General's report on loneliness, and my goodness, what an epidemic there is in our country today. And I think going together, creating ways that we can be in community with other leaders, with other people on the growth path. I think that's why I do this podcast, is to be able to create a community of other leaders who are along the growth path. And when we can do that in a way that we come alongside other people, man, there's nothing better than that. And so I'm really glad that you said that.
Absolutely.
So Karl, kind of getting to the end of our time here together today. what's one thing that you would offer as a first step for someone that's just wanting to grow, and maybe they don't know like where to start? Where would you start them?
Wow, great question. Certainly depends on their circumstance, but just speaking in generalities, if I were sitting down with you with this person, I would ask where. I love this question. Um, if you had no obstacles in front of you, what would you want to do?
Mm, yeah.
I just that I never hear that question without sitting back and thinking, wow. So
Mm,
that's where I'd ask. And then generally there's a response of, I'd like to, but. And it's in the buts, I think, that we get this harvest of negative
mm,
self-talk, negative beliefs.
yeah.
Um, because if they're positive, people have been working on them, but they're messages from early childhood, their failures that they've had in adult life, there's relationship breakdowns, all which just add baggage to the cart.
Mm-hmm.
So if you had no obstacles, what would you dream of doing? Why aren't you doing that? And let's just take one or two of those items and put some actionable thought.
Mm,
Sit down with a close colleague, sit down with a coach, sit down with yourself with a yellow pad or a white pad, just a piece of paper and a pen, and
yeah.
write out that if you had no obstacles, what were the things that you would do in the next 30 days?
Yeah, I
Just
love that.
something that by tomorrow night I could have done. Maybe I
Yeah.
can make a phone call. Yeah, I'd like to talk to so and so, but um, an excellent example of this. People are out there willing to help.
Yes.
Someone, someone recommended to me this book by Will Guidara, and he was a chef, and it's called Unreasonable Hospitality.
Yes. Yes.
And he took it from a good New York restaurant to the best in the world.
Yep. Yeah.
International competition, secret shoppers, they show up, and you get a letter in the mail that says you've been chosen as one of the world's top 50. And so he
Mm,
went the first time and he got 50th out of 50. Most people would say, yes. He
yeah.
said, don't like it. And over the next few years, they inched up the scale. So to the point, I read his book and I thought, I really like to talk to this guy. And so I had my marvelous assistant track him down on LinkedIn, shot him an email, said, I loved your book. I have some questions. And within a day or two, he said, send me your questions. So I sent him the questions.
Oh,
And
that's amazing.
he got back within a day and said, I'd love to be on your podcast.
Oh
So,
my gosh, that's amazing.
and so that's just an example of there are wonderful people out there that will help you if you just ask them. And
Yes.
so one of the first things is on this dream you have, call the person Jane that I'm talking to, and this dream that you have, Jane, what's the first step you take? Oh, I'd really like to do this. Okay, between now and the next time we talk, will you commit that you'll do that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well,
Mm-hmm.
no. Will you commit you do it? Because there's no obstacles. You're
There's no
creating
obstacles
them, but
there.
there are no obstacles.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I McKinsey interviewed this Columbia University professor. Um, the name of the book is Inner Mastery, Outer Impact. Loved the interview. Sent
Mm.
off, caught him on LinkedIn. Loved the interview. We have listeners we'd love to have. I mean, this guy's a best-selling author. I thought, okay, Mr. Gadara, he responded, but this guy didn't. Last week, I get this email. I'd love to be on your podcast.
Nice.
So again, I don't want to throw myself under the bus. I'm not saying this saying, wow, I'm a marvelous person. I get these people. No, these are marvelous people willing to help me. And all as I had
Yeah.
to do is I showed an interest and I did my part. I read
Right.
their book. I had
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah, sure, sure.
And people are out there.
And you
Great.
took action. You took action, right? And even if you perceived someone to be, oh, they're so busy, or they're, New York Times bestselling author, whatever,
Yeah.
you didn't let that but
Mhm.
get in your way. You took action, and I think that's really important, especially if we want to grow. If we want to grow, we've got to take action, whether we think something's going to happen or not. We need to take an action.
Because there's just a shift in mentality when you take that action like you're describing. And one of my favorite examples is momentum. We live in a
Mm,
small agricultural town in Oregon, and
mm,
this time of year, the big ag trucks are moving. And
sure.
they come to this. We live about 3 blocks from this big highway intersection, four-way stop, big lights. And these trucks, huge Freightliner cabs pulling 80,000 pounds, and they grind to a stop. And in the first 100 to 300 yards, I can outrun that truck with no effort. I
Sure.
can jog and beat that truck. But in about a mile or two, that truck at 55 miles an hour, I asked a good friend of mine that's a truck driver, I said, how long does it take you to stop? He said, Karl, in good conditions on dry pavement, it's about 580 feet. That's almost 2 football fields.
Yeah, it's
And
crazy,
it's,
isn't it, man?
Maxwell in his book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, talks about Big Mo,
Yeah,
momentum.
yeah,
And I
makes a
think
big
that
difference.
um, if if we can help those we work with and live around to just help them get that momentum, and then as they're
Mm,
getting that
yeah,
momentum, help them learn and be aware of those things that bring them to a stop.
mm-hmm,
Because
yeah,
I know, you write programs, you do content, and when you're in the flow, you're like a truck at 55. It's
yep,
just coming.
common, yeah,
And
for
then
sure.
a phone call comes in or someone knocks at your office door and you grind to a stop, and getting back in that flow can be murder.
Really
So,
tough, yeah, for
so
sure.
whether it's one day or whether
Uh,
it's a whole sequence of momentum,
mm,
wow,
I love that.
helping ourselves and others. Are we in action mode? Are we in momentum mode? Or are we just breaking?
Yeah. Wow, Karl, I think that's a great place to end, because I mean, thinking about the law of momentum, and the law of the big mo, as Dr. Maxwell would say, um, it's so powerful, and I really appreciate you just sharing today, just some of your thoughts on growth, leadership, coaching. It's been a wide ranging conversation, but I knew this was going to be a good one. And I really appreciate you sharing some time with us here today, and just being on the podcast. So thank you so much, my friend. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Been a complete pleasure. Thank you very much.